Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of our show. We're creeping up on almost 240 shows now, so excited to have that body of work behind me. And I think back on some of the wonderful guests we've had, and some of them came back for round two, so I appreciate them as well. And by the way, if you haven't seen the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate, which is a group I recently started with my partner Rod Kuntz, go and check it out. You can find it at youngentrepreneurs.syndicate.com. It's all about being an entrepreneur. And with that, we try to bring resources to our listeners and have great guests on the air that talk about what they're doing with wonderful histories. And today I've got the co-founder of Innovation Bound. Costa's on the line today. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jim.
So I appreciate you being on the show and spending some time with us. And we might as well just dig right into what your history is all about and where you started. If you want to go back to selling gum on the playground, that's okay too. But we want to know where your entrepreneurial life started.
Yeah, I think so. Life has beaten into my soul a single lesson, really, one truth, and that's anything is possible. That's the theme that sort of run through my life. And I think I first learned that in competitive gymnastics. I was a student athlete growing up, and I was never, on the national team or anything crazy like that, but I always worked like I was, and so did everyone else in our gym. And so it was a place of blood, sweat, and tears, of hard work. A lot of my life lessons sort of come through there. And the chief one of them was that anything is possible. And it was the sort of thing where I joined late. I was too old. I was too tall. They told me I couldn't do certain things, and I did anyway. And there were specific moments now that I reflect on, but that lesson just sort of solidified this idea that anything is possible, and it works both ways, anything good or bad. So it means be prepared for the bad, and it means go after the good. And that's been the theme that sort of run through my life. I think most presciently now I work with scientists. So we do these ideas labs with interdisciplinary groups of scientists, and they're working on things like reimagining the search for life beyond Earth. They're working on stuff like building synthetic cells. They're working on using supercomputers to enhance cancer therapies. They're doing a lot of incredible work. And this mindset that anything is possible becomes really important when you're literally trying to do things that haven't been done before. So this theme has stretched all the way from my youth as a student athlete up into my professional career, helping scientists put a little ding in the universe and make some new possibilities.
I love hearing people's backgrounds when they have an athletic experience, and even if it's not at a semi-pro or pro level, but maybe it's just something that they took seriously through their younger years, because there's so much that applies that you learn in sports when it relates to business. And I would say, to your point, anything is possible, but I love that grit that you learn in sports, right? The coach making you do one more lap, and you're about broken into tears, because you're 13 years old and you don't get it. Let's let one more lap, Talk a little bit about that grit that you learned in sports that you brought to business, because I think it's so important. If people can identify that early, they can harness that on their way into their careers.
Yeah. So gymnastics is this thing you watch, and it's really impressive, and it's so cool, and it looks like acrobatics, and it is in a sense. And so it's cool and artistic to watch. And then you go into a gym and you try it, and you realize, oh my God, this is hard every way that a sport can be hard. You have to be more flexible than you are. You have to be stronger than you are. You have to stand up to your fears. Like if you let go of the high bar a split second too late, you bang your shins on the bar, and it's not a good day. It's not a good month. You let go too early, and you might, land short and sprain an ankle or worse. So your timing's got to be right on, and there's fear on both sides. So it's psychologically challenging, physically challenging. And my coach, who did push us, he did it with a lot of love. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for my coach, Bill White, awesome gentleman. His phrase for that grit was, from the hottest fire comes the strongest steel. And that's definitely been a life lesson, a principle I try and operate by. We all know it as hard work. You have to work hard. If you don't, there's someone else somewhere else who's going to work harder than you and win. End of story. If you don't work hard, you're not going to accomplish anything. But his phrasing was just poetic. From the hottest fire comes the strongest steel. And that's definitely stayed with me.
Yeah.
You asked about business. So this comes into play, I think, in business where, especially in innovation, which is where I work. So innovation is about doing new and useful things. If it's new and useful, we can call it innovative. If it's not one of those, so if it's new but not useful, it's a novelty. If it's useful but not new, it's great, we should have it in the world, but it's not an innovation, which is fine. So clean definition for the word. And when you're doing something innovative, when you're trying to do something that's never been done before, you're entering the unknown. There are all kinds of unknown challenges, all kinds of barriers, and you have to stand up to all of them. There's this like giant list of unknown obstacles that are going to come at you. There's no preparation other than being ready to work super hard and to work smart and to keep at it for as long as it takes. And that attitude, that level of grit is absolutely required when you enter the innovation space.
Can you give me an example of what being ready looks like for you in that world? And I can't help but think back, and I've referenced it a couple times in the past on the show. My business partner, Bill Walton, NBA All-Star, he worked with all the greats, and we would talk about Michael Jordan and some of the moves that he was able to accomplish on the court. And Bill would say, Michael firsthand will tell you, he doesn't practice those moves. He practiced the basics over and over and over and over again, which allowed him to have the skill to do those spectacular moves, right? If he needed to call on them, he was ready. And I'm listening to you speak, I'm like, okay, well, what is it in innovation that is a regular habit that you have to be able to innovate or think differently than most people would?
Yeah, so I can give you two answers. One is skills-based, the other is attitudes-based. So on the attitude side, the attitude I consistently see in people who are successfully innovative is it sits between two extremes, but they never exit that range. And all the way at the bottom, when things are super hard, is never give up. And you learn this in sports. There's no giving up. There's no crying in baseball. However it's been phrased for you, there's this sort of rock bottom, like, I will do another rep. I will try again tomorrow. I will do my physical therapy, recover from my injury, and come back to the sport. I lost my leg. I will pick a sport that I can do in a wheelchair and keep going. It doesn't matter what happens. Never give up. I think Marines have the best one. What is it? Marines don't die. They just go to hell and regroup. That never give up attitude is incredible. And that's when times are tough, and times will be tough. And then on the other end, you have this, like, enjoy the process. Sometimes it's not as tough, but you're still trying, and it's years or whatever. And at that point, you got to figure out a way to enjoy the challenges. Yeah. So you enjoy this new predicament, this sideways thing, whatever. The attitude sits between enjoy the process and never give up. On the skills side, I try and boil it down to 5 skills for beginners. And one of them that's really easy to understand why it's effective is come up with lots of ideas. So in order to be innovative, you're entering the unknown. You don't know what's going to work. And so you have to try something innovative. You can't go back to your professor at college. You can't research the answer. No one's done this before. Or it's too personal. I have to solve this problem for me, and I'm too unique, an individual for anybody else's cookie cutter solution to work for me. And that's quite common. Fitness can be one of those domains. Relationships are certainly one of those domains. You have 2 unique people. There are no cookie cutter answers. Mm-hmm. Business, innovation, these spaces. So the space of imagination is infinite. So you can imagine infinite possibilities. And so as you start to explore that space, the rule is come up with lots of ideas before you settle on the one you want to try for a potential solution. And you might have to try one. It can fail. You try second one. It can fail. You try third. By 10 or 12 or 2, depending on how hard this particular challenge was along the way, any innovations, lots of challenges along the way, different ideas will work. But the rule, the sort of skill is come up with lots of ideas. And we all know this is brainstorming, or there's a lot of other ways it's been phrased. So that's one skill. There's 4 others, and I'm trying to put it all into an Innovation 101 course, which I'm happy to pitch if there's an appropriate moment.
Yeah, it's all very fascinating because I think oftentimes we are small thinkers as humans. We just look at the basics, and oftentimes you hear people say, "I just got to get through the day." The last thing on their mind is innovating something, and really stretching themselves. How do you put yourself in a mindset to stretch yourself, to be innovative, because I think when you allow yourself to look beyond what's in front of you, you're able to achieve so much more. And I would love to give people that little, it's not necessarily a catchphrase, but maybe that catch habit to start being more innovative and thinking beyond their center of circle.
Yeah. There are different personalities, different styles, and different ways of doing it. If I'm coaching people, what I try to go for first is to help break through to the creativity the person already has. So we're all born creative. It's incredible. You watch literally any child and they try things, they experiment, they play, they explore. They are risk-seeking, adventurous little creatures. Mm-hmm. The risk aversion comes later, right? It's taught to us, which is fine and totally relevant. We should have some risk aversion. It keeps us alive. It keeps us, functioning members of society. We should know how to conform when it's necessary to do so. But all of the sort of creative instincts are there. So my favorite way to try to help people is just to break through to what's natural. If that doesn't work, then you can totally go to straight up habit development, the discipline of generating a lot of ideas when you have a challenge, the discipline of using feedback to improve ideas, the discipline of testing something early and often as you go. And then really this is about finding opportunities to use imagination and creativity in life. I know my brother and his wife started homeschooling their kids over the last couple of years. So COVID shut down schools. School went virtual, and they just thought, well, look, this in-person school went virtual. They're not professionals at virtual school, but there are professionals at virtual school. Let's go sign them up for one of those.
Right.
And so they did that. But then, my brother's wife at home, like homeschooling kids most of the day, my brother pitched in for part of the day. There's all kinds of challenges they've never seen before that they have. Like, that's an opportunity to use a tremendous amount of creativity to teach kids math, reading, et cetera. So it's all around us. Everywhere we look, there are opportunities to practice being innovative in small ways.
Yeah, it's interesting to put it that way. Can you talk to us about, whether these are projects you've done or not, but just some innovative things that we didn't think about in our regular lives, so we have some good comparison examples?
Yeah, so entrepreneurship is probably the most obvious place to go for, I suppose, for this audience. When you're being entrepreneurial, there are times when you need to be innovative. It isn't always. So if you are exploring a marketplace, you don't need to necessarily invent ways to learn about the market. You can use traditional research methods to learn about the market, totally allowable. If you're starting a restaurant, for example, there's a lot of things people have already figured out about how to start a restaurant. But let's say you're building the menu for that restaurant. Well, this is a realm where creativity is perfect. Like, come up with hundreds of ideas on what could go on that menu. Explore different cuisines, chocolate tacos, like do taco desserts, or you can invent 101 different possibilities. And then you can go out and, you could choose your favorites, and then you can go out and test them for the first month that your restaurant is open, or you could test them with, prior to opening the restaurant, you could test it with friends and family and see the ones that everybody likes. But that realm is totally suitable to thinking in innovative ways and, and being creative. So there isn't always, so it's important to distinguish when imagination is helpful and sort of when it isn't. And that's certainly true in entrepreneurship. I think if there are like other domains in life where being creative is helpful, even something like a relationship, and the fitness metaphor. So let's see if we can tie these together. So we talked about fitness and athleticism and being an athlete as being a really important domain for laying down strong foundations for being successful in life. And I think the fitness as a metaphor is a super impressive lens to use for a variety of different things, including something like a relationship. So if you look at fitness and sports, you have a couple of themes that run through. If you do something the wrong way, you could get injured. If you do it the correct way, you're less likely to get injured. Repetitions will make you better at something. Too many reps, too much abuse, and you'll get injuries. So there's a sweet spot. If you stop working out, you fall out of shape. If you start working out again, you get back in shape. You don't just have it forever. And so that's physical fitness. You can go over to emotional fitness, same exact set of rules apply.
Yeah.
You have to do the repetitions. You have to operate within the zone, do things in a way that isn't going to injure you or cause damage to others, etc. You go to relationships.